Good afternoon. Am I drinking coffee at 4:13 p.m.? Yes. Is there a giant pile of laundry behind me? Yes. But guess what? I don't care about my laundry. I care way more about you guys. Okay? Wait, actually, I'm gonna make my bed. Yeah, I can have laundry in the room, but if my bed isn't made, that's fucked up, right? Still looks like absolute shit. All right, now for the topic of the day. Let's talk about Longlegs. Okay, so apparently a lot of people, critics and audience members alike, are calling this movie nonsensical and kind of dumb. Not as profoundly terrifying as promised. Genuinely one of the worst theatrical experiences they've had in years. Come on, that's a stretch, guys. And listen, I just gotta say, they're wrong, okay? They're just wrong. Once in a blue moon, a horror movie comes along that actually makes me feel something. Besides regret that I went to see it in the first place in the theaters instead of just waiting until it came out of streaming and watching it in the comfort of my own home, in my own bed, where I wouldn't have been scared anyways. And the Osgood Perkins directed horror, psych, murder, mystery mashup Longlegs was the first horror movie I'd seen in theaters in a long time. Probably since Smile. Actually, I'm not even sure I saw Smile in theaters. I think that's just the last memorable one I saw. And as some of you may know, Smile wasn't exactly my favorite. It kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And in my dreams for the next several weeks. It's not often that a horror emerges into the mainstream like Longlegs or Smile did. In fact, the general expectation that I have when I see trailers for scary movies these days is a barely baked plot, incredibly B-list actors, and a half-hearted attempt at doing something new and unexpected that ends up being a carbon copy of the entire Conjuring franchise. And that, to me, is what sets Longlegs apart. Okay, does it have creepy dolls that carry supernatural powers? Yes. Was the ending a little less payoff than I would have liked? Maybe. Did it carry the weirdly religious cliches of classic horrors before it? Absolutely. But look, there's a reason that Longlegs had me disturbed for days on end after watching it. More so than Smile, more so than pretty much any horror I've watched in the last several years. And hear me out here, this is gonna sound nonsensical and kind of dumb, but I don't think it had anything to do with the plot and everything to do with the execution. Now, Longlegs has got enough praise already for its perfect cinematography and terrifying sound design, and everyone seems to be talking about its brilliant marketing campaign or whatever. I didn't really pay attention to it that much. But what I did pay attention to were these little stylistic choices that forced me to the edge of my seat and kept me there. And listen, my friends that I went to see the movie with can attest, I was not just on the edge of my seat. I couldn't sit still, my palms were sweaty.
I was tweaking, okay?
And here's what I think did it. It's the aspect ratio of the flashback scenes and the intentional simple film shots that go with them. It's that blaring red title card that imprints that color on your retinas for the first minute of the movie. It's the creative choices with jump scares that somehow accurately portray a traumatic flashback. It's the acting. The acting. And here's about where we get to my favorite part of the video. The Nicolas Cage problem. Now, if you're following along with the ad campaign of this movie, you knew right away that Nick Cage was really its figurehead. Some reviews were saying that there wouldn't be a Longlegs without Nick Cage. And I understand what people mean when they say his performance was lackluster, too animated, his worst performance of the last 20 years. Okay, that's a little harsh. Don't you think that's a little harsh? But I think people are kind of missing the point here. See, for Longlegs, Nick Cage is really no more than a brilliant marketing strategy. He wears such unique prosthetics that yes, you would not have known it was him unless you already knew going into the theater. Don't lie to yourself. And on top of all of this, he really only has like 20 minutes of screen time in the entire film. Believe it or not, he's not the main character. Even though the movie's, named after him or whatever. And his absence from the majority of the plot actually allowed the other characters, specifically Michael Monroe as Harker and Alicia Witt as Harker's mom, to shine through in a way that most horror protagonists fail to do. The creators of Longlegs clearly made some very intentional decisions when it came to casting. Monroe's character sets the unsettling tone of the entire movie just by being unsettling. She doesn't have to be this normal woman who doesn't understand why all this terrible stuff is happening to her and then just starts crying all the time like Sosie Bacon in Smile. She's offbeat, she doesn't get startled easily, and even when confronted with Longlegs face to face, all she can do is stop and stare. She makes it clear throughout the movie that she carries some of whatever this supernatural power is, and that's what makes her such an atypical horror protagonist. I mean, damn, even the way her mouth moves when she talks just sends shivers up my spine for some reason. This all contributes to that lingering, unsafe feeling throughout the movie, and that's what got me scared more than anything. Those moments alone with Lee Harker where you as the audience should feel safe, but you don't. Now, should Harker have known that her mother was contributing to the evil that followed her? Yeah, of course, but they made that pretty obvious to the audience. Her pale complexion, the checked out conversations between the two.
Do you still say your prayers? No, Mom. I never said my prayers, never once.
But it was also made clear that Harker's relationship with her mother has always been difficult and non-communicative, and sprinkled here and there with some childhood trauma. This added a layer of realness within the main character dynamics that, again, I haven't been seeing in horror movies lately. And real is scary. And okay, so Nick Cage's performance wasn't everything you would expect it. So you say anyone could have done this role. Sure, Nick Cage's performance was what I would have expected from a B-list actor in a horror movie like I mentioned before. And sure, maybe we should be expecting more from a high caliber actor like Nick Cage. But you went because you wanted to see Nick Cage, didn't you? They got you, didn't they? Don't hate the player, hate the game, all right? You weren't sure if you were supposed to find him hilarious or terrifying, but can't we compromise for both? I mean, you were laughing at his antics in the interrogation room until he started smashing his head into the table. And if you were laughing during that part, I would seek help immediately. I mean, just look at the most memorable antagonist performances in the last 2 decades. Heath Ledger's Joker, Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter. Now, I'm not trying to put Nick Cage's performance in Longlegs on the same pedestal as these giants, but the point is, these performances aren't effective simply because they're always scary. They're effective because they go against all of our natural instincts as human beings. They are, in action, the least human a human can be. And I think Nick Cage tapped into a little bit of that in Longlegs. Not a lot, but just enough to deliver a truly chilling performance. So I say again, once in a blue moon. Longlegs captured, in my opinion, exactly what I want a horror movie to be. Hair-raising, uncomfortable, constantly triggering that fight-or-flight response that ultimately we can't control. A movie that's able to manipulate these very human tendencies in a creative way is, again, in my opinion, worthy of praise. And let's be honest, Nick Cage will always be Nick Cage. Alright, that's really all I have to say. This is a long one, so I hope you guys enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever, do the thing. I'll see you later. Okay, bye-bye.